Okay, so today we're going to talk about material dependencies in psychotronic energy. Now I did some videos a little bit back, and someone suggested that maybe some of the forces were generated by triboelectric. Some of the videos I did were absolutely shielded. For instance, like this guy. It's got a Faraday cage around it, and it proves without a doubt that there is psychotronic energy. But you're right, there is competing forces, and you have to make sure that they are completely shielded out. But this makes experiments much more difficult. Let's do some experiments. I was doing some experiments with paper spinners because they are not influenced by electromagnetic fields. They're completely, in some ways, a better test, but they actually behave differently than the aluminum ones. Okay, so let's, I don't have it balanced properly. So I'm not sure if it's because they have higher friction or, let's just get this one going. But anyway, what I found is that it's okay to spin them without a shielding around them. This camera pod is kind of annoying me. You have to be relaxed doing this. Okay, there we go. So it's spinning pretty good now. But let's take our shielding and I'll put it over top of it. Okay, and twist it back and forth to make sure none of the edges are touching the edge of the shielding. And I was trying for days and days, and I have had a huge amount of difficulty trying to make this thing spin under the shielding. So you have a paper rotor under aluminum shielding, under aluminum Faraday cage. So I'm like, what, have I lost my talent? What's going on here? So I'm trying and it does not seem to be spinning. Okay, so I have some aluminum rotors here, aluminum foil rotors that I've built up that much easier to spin actually, and I'm not sure if it's because the coefficient of friction is lower or if they more strongly interact with the psychotronic energy field. Okay, so we'll just put this guy on and try to make him spin in there. Of course, it's always more difficult to make the rotor spin under shielding conditions and when you put more material in between it. Okay, but it's definitely spinning. See if we can see that through the camera. Yeah, okay. And we'll put the paper one back on again. Okay, I must have hit my hand there. Maybe it's getting caught up here. Okay. So the paper one definitely spins without the shielding. And it's not convection. It's definitely not convection. I've shown that in some of my other videos. And with the shielding, that rules out any type of electrostatic force, although I do believe that this energy may be causing that. It causes changes in material properties, and so I do believe that what was caused in that video is a direct result of this. Maybe my interpretation wasn't correct as far as paramagnetism, but we'll see. I still need to do some more research on that, because the materials do become magnetic. It's just whether I can shield out the other things that are going on or not. And I've shown that in some of my videos, that the influence of magnets becomes stronger when the materials become charged. Okay, let me try really hard and see if I can spin this again. I'll try as hard as I did with the aluminum. Okay, I'm not sure if it's moved at all, but it's definitely much harder to make spin than the aluminum one. And so there are definitely differences in material properties between the way psychotronic energy interacts with paper and aluminum. And I'm going to continue to try to do the paper one, even though it's a lot harder, because I gotta be able to shield out other effects. And I think more practice will increase your energy that you can produce, and it's always a win-win situation. If we have a more stronger effect, it's easier to measure it. So anyway, difference in materials with psychotronic energy. Okay, here's another material. It's a stainless steel, and it's kind of slightly magnetic. It's not super magnetic. Let's see, it's not pulling off the fixture, but it is magnetic, and it's a lot more heavy than the aluminum spinner. Let's put the aluminum spinner on for a second. Okay, so there's our aluminum spinner. Let's see how it spins, and we will put our stainless steel on there. It's a lot heavier. Okay, let's see if we can spin that through the shielding. Got our shielded cup here. Zoom in on this guy a little bit. It's hard to tell if it's in focus sometimes. A little bit more overhead. Okay. definitely more difficult to spin than the aluminum spinner, but I think I'm able to spin it a little bit. Whereas, opposed to the paper spinner, it's just about completely impossible. Okay, let's stop it for a second. See if we can get it spinning again. Okay, so yeah, I'm able to definitely start it from a stop and get it spinning under the shielding. And let's try putting the aluminum one back on. For some reason the aluminum one, maybe because it's lighter, or maybe it's a material difference, it's always easier to spin under here. Okay, so both of those again are in a shield container, electrically shielded with aluminum. Okay, so there's 3 different materials we've tried so far. Okay, so here's a copper spinner that I made out of two pieces of copper tape. So it's actually quite a bit heavier. Copper's heavier than aluminum. And it's a little bit more difficult to spin because of that. There's the aluminum one. And well, let's okay. So it's hard to make a direct comparison, I guess, since it's so much heavier. That's going to put more friction on the bearings. Here's our copper spinner. And it is a lot heavier than the aluminum one. If I really concentrate, it looks like I'm able to get it to spin some though. So put it in the shielded thing. It's usually a lot harder to spin it under here. So we'll see. Maybe have to make a lighter copper one. I'm not sure how much lighter I can make it though, because copper is a lot heavier than aluminum. But I guess this is just preliminary experiments with different materials. We know, at least from the paper, that that's probably about as light as the aluminum one, and it doesn't work as well under the shielding. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to be able to spin it right now under here, because it's much more difficult to spin under the shielding, and I'm having a little bit of difficulty spinning it here, and I'm not sure if it's because of the material or if it's because of the added weight of the copper, because it's about 4 or 5 times heavier, if not more, than the aluminum. And just to compare, since I don't really have a meter on how strong my psychic force is, I have to do a comparison to something that was previously done. And this does change on a daily basis and hourly. When you become more fatigued or whatever, it becomes lower. Usually when I wake up in the morning, the energy's higher. Depends on how you can concentrate. Depends on if you have stress. Okay, anyway, here's some of the rotors that we tried. Here's a stainless steel one. Aluminum worked the best. Stainless steel is heavier, and I think that that causes more friction. Oops. Here's a paper one. I can get this to spin regularly, but not at all with almost not at all with the under the shielding. That was very interesting. And the copper one, I thought would let's get this out of the way. I thought the copper one might be as good as the aluminum, but it's very heavy. It's even hard to spin without the shielding. It's many times heavier than the aluminum, possibly 10 times heavier. That's going to provide more friction on the needle bearing that we have, and it could be also the material properties too, because it seems like the material properties interact differently with this energy. So anyway, here's our 4 different types of rotors that we've tested with different materials under a shielded, aluminum shielded Faraday type cage. I did want to make a note. Someone did comment that it's not completely shielded at the top and the bottom. This is true, but the fringe fields will only extend in so far, depending on the size of the hole. And I'm doing activity on the side, so any charging would happen on the side. So it would pretty much, and the rotor tips come very close to this, so it's going to be highly shielded, very close to the edge. You know, if you actually did some simulations of this in some kind of electromagnetic code, it would be shielded well enough. Even you know, like Van de Graaff spheres have a hole in them. It just depends on where you are inside the Faraday cage. And my working with electricity and magnetism for many years, you know, tell me that that is shielded well enough for these experiments. And it's not the electric force that's interfering there. It's something that's penetrating through the Faraday cage. Okay, so here we have a scale here, and I put it on grams because we like to do things in SI now. And so the aluminum spinner is 0.1 grams, and let's put the paper spinner on here. Paper spinner is actually heavier, it's 0.2 grams. Of course, the error on that's about 0.1 gram. Let's put our stainless steel spinner on there, and that's 10 times heavier, that's 1 gram. Oops. And let's put our copper spinner on there, and that is 1.7 grams, so it's even heavier yet. But yet, it seemed like the copper spinner was much harder to spin than the stainless steel one. So it's hard to tell whether it was almost double the weight, or it seemed like it was quite a bit harder to spin than the stainless steel, more than twice as hard. So anyway, so we'll have to do some more investigation to see if the weight is what makes the difference, or if it's the materials. Anyway. Okay, for a better comparison, I made a new copper one, which only had half the amount of copper on it, so it should be much lighter. So it's actually a little bit lighter than the stainless steel one. It's 0.9 grams. So let's see how this one behaves. Okay. Okay. So it's definitely easier to spin the lighter it is. Let's try putting it on the shield and see if we can spin it at all under there, to get a more fair comparison. Okay. Okay. Okay, it looks like Looks like it's turning a little bit, but it is very hard to turn. I still think it's harder to turn than the stainless steel, even though it's a little bit lighter now. I'll try a little bit more and see if I can get it to turn some more. Okay, looks like we're definitely getting it to turn. So weight was part of the issue. They have to be very light to work. Shielding also makes it much more difficult to turn. We compare this to aluminum. Put the aluminum one back on. Use this one as our reference, since it's the easiest to spin. Okay. Stop it from spinning. We can make sure it's not touching any of the sides. Okay, I guess I'm a little bit tired now after trying to spin the copper one, because the aluminum one usually spins a lot easier. Anyway, it's still spinning freer than the other one, it's just not spinning. I think I'm a little bit fatigued from spinning the copper one, because I had to really concentrate on that. It still spins much easier though. Okay. Even through the shielding. Okay, anyway. This is Dr. Janes, and thanks for watching.